Let's go a year. No, I should have. Gah! What's wrong with this giant dwarf thing? How does Skogul keep beating me? How strong is Skogul? How strong is Skogul? Well, if you're asking that question, well, you've come to the right channel. Skogul is a big meta monster. He's the wind giant warrior. You've probably seen him around in siege defenses. So he's usually ruined Violent Will with lots and lots of HP, and he's usually paired up with the very toxic and very annoying K-Moon Skogul Vigor comp. I'm not here to tell you about Skogul stats and how to use him in meta or RTA. You don't really use him in RTA. I'm here to tell you about the physics behind Skogul's rock. Specifically, I want to answer how fast Skogul's rock hits the ground. So when Skogul does his skill 2, the Atlas Stone, he throws it in the air, then after a turn, the rock drops, and then it hits the opponent and deals damage. How fast does the rock actually fall from the sky? So first off, we need to use real-life comparisons for this to work. For this, we know that Skogul's rock is called the Atlas Stone, as said by skill 2. An Atlas Stone, also known as a lifting stone, is a big and heavy spherical object made out of concrete or steel. According to the magical world of internet searches, Atlas Stones are common throughout the Northern Europe and have been recently added as a category in the World's Strongest Man competitions, where you've guessed it, people compete by lifting heavier stones. A quick search tells me that a half-meter diameter Atlas Stone mixed with some steel is around 80 kilograms or 175 pounds in its mass. So this gives the ball's density of about 1,159 kilograms per meter cube. So to do this, we're going to use the formula for an object's density, which is density equals mass per unit volume. Now we already know the density of a steel ball, and assuming that Skogul is using a similar steel Atlas Stone, we can approximate its mass. We can compare them. And then for the volume, since we know it's a sphere, all we need to find out is the rock's radius. Now to do this, we can measure Skogul's rock using another monster's weapon of choice, which is the Jomongo from the String Master. So in my previous video, we've measured the Jomongo to be about 160 centimeters. This approximates the rock's mass to about 487 kilograms or 1,073 pounds. That's almost half a ton of rock that comes crashing down on your Mihos. Poor cats. So now we know how heavy Skogul's rock is. But how does that help us find out in how fast it's falling? Bear with me for a minute here. Skogul throws the rock way up, and as Skogul takes his turn, the rock just keeps... I'm assuming that the rock keeps getting higher and higher until it finally falls. So at the moment it falls, the skill animation tells us that the rock seemingly instantaneously drops from the heavens. In this scenario, we can assume that the rock has hit its terminal velocity point given by the equation. That, my friends, is the terminal velocity formula. To be able to solve this, we first need to do some assumptions. First, we need to assume that Skogul's rock is spherical and of uniform density. That means I'm not gonna count all the cracks and all the killer spikes on Skogul's rocks. Second is we need to know the values of the variables in the equation. The first up is the drag coefficient of a sphere, which you can look in your engineering handbook. It's about 0.45, just that value. Next is the density of air in which the object is falling in. So we can assume that the air is similar here in our world and the Summoner's War world. The density of air is 1.225 kilograms per meter cube. And next, of course, is the mass of that infamous rock, which we've calculated earlier, which is 487 kilograms. And the next is the projected area of the rock on the ground. This is basically the area of the shadow of the rock falling from the sky, which is simply 0.55 square meters. And lastly, we need the value of gravity in the Summoner's War world. It's actually 23.149 meters per second squared, which we derived on my very first video on the channel. Go check that out. And then we input the values to the magic equation for terminal velocity, and voila! We know that the rock hits the ground at 272 meters per second or 979 kilometers per hour.
Hey.
To put that into perspective, the Mach 1 speed, or the speed of sound, is defined as 342 meters per second or 767 kilometers per hour. So we've almost hit, no, not we. So Skogul's rock is almost as fast as Mach 1 or the speed of sound. That's pretty fast, but we're not just done yet. Now, what would happen if the giant warrior was real and he had the same amount of strength he has in the game? So we simply change the value of the Summer's War gravity to our real-world gravity, and then we get the terminal velocity again, which is now 177.521 meters per second. That's slower by 100 meters per second from the Summer's War world value, but that's still pretty deadly though. My verdict on this is, it's probably good advice that if you ever meet a Skogul in real life, it's better to not tick him off and just walk away if you don't want the same experience as my Shayna Martina. Okay guys, so you've reached the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it and hopefully you learned something, maybe. So for those of you who don't know, this is going to be my last entry for the Summer's War Content Creator Contest. If you enjoyed my content, you can support me by leaving a comment or a like or a subscribe, to help me win that contest. And I'll see you guys hopefully in the next video. Bye!